Hello and welcome to Motors for the Masses, and today we have another Moto Morini, this time the Scrambler's non-gender specific twin, the street bike. See, topical. So let's roll the intro and get cracking. So let's jump straight in with the cinematic stuff. The specifications on the bike and the engine and the power and everything else is the same as you find on the Scrambler. So if you are interested in that, rather than repeat it all again in this video, just watch the Scrambler video, which is up there, and the link is in the description, and you can compare. It's the same. However, the STR, or the street bike, is 70mm narrower on the handlebars than the SCR, the Scrambler bike. You still get an 18-inch front wheel and a 17-inch rear wheel, except now instead of Scrambler tyres you get Pirelli Angel GT street tyres. I quite like this lower mudguard, although I do prefer the Scrambler one, and I like this little design here, like a little cut-in with the mesh grille in there. That's a nice little design to cover up that massive horrible exhaust box. You still get the low 810mm seat height, and again, like I said in the last video, 5'10.5", 31.5 inch inside leg, comfortable, feet flat on the floor. I like this, although, do I like it as much as the Scrambler? Well, I'll tell you about that at the end. Other than that, it's a very comfortable ride. It feels, what's the best word? Well-fitting. That's the best word. It does fit me very nicely. I think this will suit anybody who's sort of 6 foot and below. If you're above that, then obviously you're limited on what bikes you can get on anyway. But it just feels really comfortable. Now, the mirrors are not as long on the stalk as the Scrambler ones, but you've still got okay visibility, about 85% I would say, but once I've got my jacket on that may reduce a slight amount. Other than that, you've got a little bit of a different design at the front here, and nothing else really is that much different, to be honest. However, is the ride different? And instantly I can tell you this feels very different. Now, different how? Well, it feels more like a street cruiser. Obviously the handlebars are narrower, so it does feel a little bit I would say easier to ride. It's different to ride. The seat is just as comfortable. The tyres feel nice and smooth, and bearing in mind obviously the road's a bit damp, but it seems pretty point and shoot. It's nice and smooth still, gear change still smooth, just like the Scrambler. It's very simple to ride. Obviously a red light, There's bloody traffic lights in this town. It is really easy to ride. So the balance is like coming up to the, yeah, balance is good. Again, 810mm seat height, so you can easily put your foot down and it doesn't feel heavy at all. Well, it's still quite sprightly as it pulls away. If anything, it doesn't quite feel as torquey as the Scrambler did. Obviously when we get on the dual carriageway we'll see if that is different. Visibility out of the mirrors, not as good as the Scrambler. It's not horrendous. You've got a different shaped mirror on this. Obviously you've got more of a teardrop mirror than you have a round mirror on the Scrambler, but the stalks are not as long, so I can see about 20% of arm and about 80% road, which is fine. I've still got decent visibility behind me. It's very pleasant to ride. Got no problems there. It's very easy to hold at speed. As I say, it's just really simple. I like the balance of it. My knees are tucked nicely into the tank. Very well contoured, very comfortable seat. Simple suspension, nice and forgiving. Obviously it is adjustable. I can see this as an excellent commuter vehicle. You know, this definitely doesn't ride like the Scrambler rides. This is a little bit more serene, a bit more laid back, certainly at this speed anyway, and it doesn't feel as urgent or as torquey as the Scrambler. Now I know there's a little bit of difference in the way the power is delivered, and certainly in the CO2 figures there's a little bit of difference over the Escape, and it may just be me not giving it the beans yet. It's very simple. I think I may have said that several times, but it is. Now one of the big questions is, does it feel exciting? Well, at the moment it feels okay. So the answer to that question is no, not as exciting as the Scrambler. But as I say, as an everyday commuter or street bike, it certainly does its job well enough. Waft around the corners with ease. And to say, at the moment, I prefer the Scrambler, but that may change when I take it down the dual carriageway. Nice and weavy, very simple. I've got to find a better word than simple, but that's exactly what it is. It's very easy to ride, and I could imagine if this is your first big bike, it's an excellent way to start, because there's nothing negative about it. Right, let's see how this goes. Yeah, up to speed very simply. Now I don't know if it's because there's a bit more wind today, but it really doesn't feel as quick as the Scrambler did. It's now starting to rain. So we'll go around this corner and see. Well, I can safely say it pulls as well as the Scrambler. It gets up to speed as well as the Scrambler. It's just as balanced as the Scrambler. But the Scrambler feels more exciting. As I say, I can see this as the ideal bike if you are breaking into the big bike market. You need something that is going to propel you quite adequately at motorway speeds, get you out of trouble if you need to, but it's very easy to ride and pleasurable. This is ideal. It's just a nice all-round machine. So let's go and talk about some prices and some colours. So there you go, there's my thoughts on the ride of it. Now, interestingly, the street bike and the Scrambler, despite them being very similar in their power and performance, I do feel ride very differently. Now this one, even though you're sitting on the comfortable seat, because of the handlebars, you feel more like you're on a street bike. I tell you what, they are both really good at doing what they say they are. This feels like a street bike, the Scrambler feels like a Scrambler. Now this, I felt, for me, was not as pokey as the Scrambler. Still a nice bike to ride, but it just didn't feel as pokey as the Scrambler. It didn't feel as torquey low down. And also, I felt I was slightly more on this than in it. And again, I think that's down to the handlebars and the way they're set out. If you like street bikes, it's lovely. It does ride well, it picks up well. It doesn't feel as urgent as the Scrambler, but looking at the clock, it gets up there just as quickly. But it doesn't feel as an aggressive ride as the Scrambler does, in a good way. That's a good aggressive ride, not an upsetting aggressive ride. However, overall, I think it's brilliant. I can't really fault the bike. Only, like with the other one, the exhaust. It's a bit naff. That heat guard doesn't really do anything. It doesn't really, in fact, it doesn't even guard the heat. It just stops you seeing the huge box and this pipe coming out of it. Hello? What was that about? See my hair waving in the wind? It's windy. Now, when it comes to preference, which one do I prefer, this or the Scrambler? And it's interesting that I'm putting it in this video because it's the second one. But I basically feel that the Scrambler is awesome in every way apart from the exhaust. I love it. I love the colour, I love the feel of it, I love the way it feels when you're riding it, I love the look of it. This I really like, and I think that sums it up. I really like this. I love the Scrambler. If it was my money, I'd pay a little bit more and get the Scrambler because it just has that little bit extra, ooh, yeah. This is a nice bike. I can see this as being a perfect commuter bike. And if you're breaking into the big bike market, like I was saying a little while ago, it's perfect. Because it's a great first bike, it's torquey, it's powerful enough, it's fast enough, and it's really, really simple to ride. And that basically is all I have to say on it. So there you go. Now there are different colours you can get. You get Starlight White, Smoky Anthracite, and this Fire Red. And again, out of the three, I think the red looks superb. Price, well, it's £6,899 on the road with that 3-year warranty, and the servicing intervals and costs are as I spoke about in the other video. So again, if you want to see all the specs on the engine and the suspension and the indicators and the lights and everything else, please go back and watch that video and you'll see. And the same with the servicing costs and intervals as well. And that brings me to the end of this episode of Motos for the Masses. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll be back very soon with something else, and I don't know what. We are going to motorcycle live in a couple of weeks, so there'll be a report coming from there, so stay tuned for that also. Again, don't forget to click the notification bell or subscribe if you haven't already. If you want to support this channel, you can do. Have a look at the links in the description below for our Facebook shop and Patreon. And that's all I have to say. So until next time, please ride and drive carefully, but have fun. Bye-bye.